we come together to seek God, trusting that God is seeking us with open arms. All are welcome here. No matter our doubts or questions, where we come from, or who we love, even in the chaotic seasons of life, we are loved by God. All are welcome here. We believe that everyone is a child of God. Every age, race, gender, identity, and creed. All are beautifully and colorfully made and of sacred worth. All are welcome here. We affirm that God is a good God who lifts the oppressed, loves the vulnerable, and is open to all. So we choose to have open hearts, open minds, and open doors to God and to each other. All are welcome here.
Hello and welcome to this gathering of Open. We're so glad to be joining with you today. You are welcome here. I'm Pastor Jonathan Perry and this is Open. Today coming from our homes and from Open to join with you in your home. It means so much to us right now to be able to connect in community with you in this way. If this is your first time here, we're so glad to be with you and we want you to know you are welcome here. Today, amidst everything from our homes and lives and stories, we come together to seek God, to seek a God who is seeking us and seeking to listen and learn together from each other, from the heart of God, joining in the loving work of the God of justice and joy and peace. So to center our hearts around that today, we've got some friends who are going to lead us in our liturgy this morning. They'll be leading us in words that are simple, but they are profound. That wherever you are, wherever you find yourself on this day, in the heart of God and the love of this community, all are welcome here. So friends, let's lift this up together.
We come together to seek God, trusting that God is seeking us with open arms. All are welcome here.
No matter our doubts or questions, where we come from or who we love.
Even in the chaotic seasons of life, we are loved by God.
All are welcome here.
We believe that everyone is a child of God. Every age, race, gender, identity, ability, and creed. All are beautifully and colorfully made and of sacred worth. All are welcome here.
We affirm that God is a good God, who lifts the oppressed, loves the vulnerable, and is open to all. So we choose to have open minds, open hearts, open arms, and open doors to God and each other. All are welcome here.
Good morning, friends, and welcome to Open Worship this morning. We are so glad that you are gathered with us from your homes today. At this time, we'd like to invite you to pop on over to opendtx.com/sign-in. Even if you've done it before, this just helps us get a clearer picture of who all is here. If you are new here or haven't commented before, say hello in the comments. We would love to meet you. And now let's greet each other and let it be known that all are welcome here. Hey friends, my name is Crystal, and with me today I have my friends Brandon and Clay and Dave and Kelly, and we are your worship leaders this morning. We just want you to know that whoever you are, whatever your story or identity is, God's love is here for you, and so are we. Let's continue to worship together.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh, my soul, worship your holy name. Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I'll worship your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh, my soul, worship your holy name. Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I'll worship your holy name. You're rich in love and you're slow to anger. Your name is great and your heart is kind. For all your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh, my soul, worship your holy name. Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I'll worship your holy name. And on that day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come. Still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh, my soul, worship your holy name. Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I'll
Many of us have been told at some point in our lives all about who God is. And sadly, I know that many of us were told that God was exclusive, that God's love had conditions, and that we were not welcome in God's kingdom as our true selves. But when we dig deeper into the heart of Scripture and who God says God is, we begin to find quite the opposite of that is true. We find that God is an inclusive and kind, good, generous, and loving God. And in this song, we're proclaiming that good news and that truth together. As we sing or listen together from home, we invite you to share any prayer requests that you may have in the comments so that we can lift those up together as a community.
I will
Hi, friends. It's so great to gather together. And so here's a question. What is God like? What's God like? I've got littles around my house, and so I get this question a lot. What is God like? Maybe God is like some cross between Santa Claus, a superhero, and their sweet grandmother. Or if you're a kid like my kid Hudson, God is the source of the universe and all the galaxies, and especially the galaxies a long time ago and far, far away. What is God like? Just that question. Immediately our minds stretch upward and outward, or maybe back to the past and toward those images that we might have had growing up and weren't always life-giving, that we've been deconstructing and reconstructing. The answer to this question, what is God like, shapes so much of what we feel about the world, ourselves, each other, all of it. Maybe at some point in our faith life, the answers to that question began to change, and we began to change with it. Or maybe along the way, we began to experience God in unexpected ways that maybe we couldn't quite put our words to, but we experienced God in places like the world, when the sun was shining, the leaves were opening up, and life itself was emerging. When good and growth seemed near, God seemed near too. That question, what is God like? It's a question that from early on shapes us and makes us, and continues to do so. It's shaped humanity all along. It's an answer that humanity and each of us are always learning more about, wrestling with, growing in. Because it's so important in the depth of our souls, this is a question that Jesus spent much of his time with as well, that he lived out, taught. He related to God in new ways, helping us be led forward in new understandings, new ways, new metaphors, new visions of what God is like, inviting us to keep seeking, keep growing, keep staying open. And it makes sense. If Jesus said the great commandment was to love God, love neighbor as we love ourselves, then what is this God we're called to love like? One of Jesus' favorite ways to teach us about what God was like was to begin with the answers we may have learned along the way and then expand them. Sometimes subvert them or flip them on their head, but always to leave us with a bigger, broader, more loving and compassionate and welcoming and near vision of God than we'd ever imagined. And with it, Jesus brought liberation, healing, hope, acceptance, belonging, and love to many. What is God like? He would take a metaphor like God is like a shepherd and then be like, yes. But God is not just a shepherd to the flock, paying attention to all the sheep who are cozy in the circle. God is a shepherd like this. Imagine there's a sheep that's in danger. God is the kind of shepherd who leaves the 99 and goes after the one who's in peril. That's the kind of shepherd that God is. He would flip the metaphor. And by doing that, he'd invite those who are in the circle to look around for who might be missing, and to those who might be on the outside to know that they are seen. And still for us today, Jesus invites us to be like that God who looks around to those who are in danger and in peril around us. Maybe Asian lives or Black lives, trans lives right now. Maybe to leave our comfort inside and go make the vulnerable safe. And for those of us who are there, to know we are seen. Because that's the kind of shepherd that God is like. That is what God is like. Or another common metaphor was God as a father. And Jesus would say, yeah, sure. And then totally flip the script. God is like a father, but not judgmental or distant. God is a father who welcomes home the long gone child with open arms and warm, wild celebration. God is like a father you can call daddy or Abba. In fact, even more, God is also like a mother too. A mother who longs to bring us all together under her wings. God is like all that and more, fulfilling and transcending these metaphors and ideas that we might imagine. But the common thread through it all, through Jesus' teachings and the way he lived, was this simple truth that answers our question, what is God like? And Jesus would say simply, God is compassionate. You should be compassionate like God is compassionate. So Jesus answers that question. What is God like? God is compassionate. God is like a compassionate shepherd. God is like a compassionate parent. And so much more. God is compassionate. And so what does that mean? What does that tell us? Does it just mean that God is nice? What does it mean to say God is compassionate? Well, check this out. That word compassionate in Greek is the word splagnitsomai, which is a very fun word to say, splagnitsomai. And it kind of means what it sounds like. It means to be deeply moved for something, body and soul, to see need, to see pain or oppression, to see another, and to be deeply moved and move into action, to experience deep interconnectedness, to share the experience of another, to be with another and be deeply moved in need, in love, to help. God is compassionate. God is deeply entwined with us and is deeply moved in love on our behalf. So God is like a compassionate shepherd who is moved for the sheep in vulnerability, knowing their lives are deeply connected and bound together. God is the God who brings liberating hope, helping us be set free to be who we truly are. God brings uncompromising justice for all, and especially for the one who might feel outside, being moved for all who hurt. And God is a God who is compassionate for us all, especially in those moments of struggle and doubt, like a compassionate parent who welcomes us all in along our journey. And Jesus invites us to do the same. You should be compassionate like God is compassionate. We should be deeply moved, deeply connected to each other, welcoming and inclusive, just as God is for us all. So what is God like? God is a God of liberating hope, uncompromising justice, and God is a God who is compassionate for all, us included. And we should seek to be the same. It's way better than Santa Claus or Superman, right? Well, today is Palm Sunday, and today is a day that Jesus took one of those what is God like old metaphors and flipped it on its head. He took a common metaphor in the ancient day, and sometimes a common metaphor now, the metaphor of king. I'm not always sure what to do with the king word in modern life, truthfully. We live in a country that was literally created not to have a king. Oprah knows this, right? You really only hear king positively in religious spaces or hamburger joints, of course. Other than that, it's not always so positive. The only positive kings we ever see are in Disney movies, and if they're good kings, the life expectancy isn't great, let's just say. Life is tough for good Disney kings. King is hard to wrap our minds around. Now, if it was queen, we could get behind it. That we understand, but king is tough. We've also seen the word king go wrong. Sometimes we've seen historically that using that word king in a religious context is synonymous with this victorious patriarchal triumphalism. The king is the one who defeats all comers, reinforcing this dualistic worldview of winners and losers and inside and out and us versus them. The our God is bigger than your God perspective of power, like it's religious WrestleMania out there or something. But even more, for each of us personally, this triumphal king who always comes out on top can make us feel. In those tough seasons when we're not feeling on top, it begin to make us wonder whether we're really on the king team after all. But I want to bring some liberating hope by flipping this metaphor just as Jesus did. Because none of those things match the heart of God that Jesus embodied. Jesus who shows us what God is like. Jesus who draws near the vulnerable. The Jesus who crosses borders and transcends us versus them dichotomies, showing us that it is just us. Jesus who broke down walls, who welcomed all in holistic love, welcoming those who are not on top by societal standards and loving all of us every step of our journey, especially the unsteady ones. And in the end, giving up his power and position and privilege and person in love for the reconciliation and the liberation of us all. That doesn't sound like king as we've known it, but maybe as it should be. Maybe it shows us that vision of God that is over all, but also with all and for all and in all. A God who is compassionate. And so right here on Palm Sunday, Jesus flips the script and transforms this world for us. Transforms our vision of power and our responsibility and our places of privilege. Jesus shows us what it looks like when God is compassionate and invites us to do the same. Let's dig in to understand this a little better. Jesus never took on the title of king himself, but everyone was asking him to do it, trying to give him the title. And every time he turned around, like literally handing him crowns and championship belts and taking selfies. I think that's what it says in Greek. They were saying, your way sounds way better than King Herod or King Caesar. Will you please actually be our king? Pretty please. And so at the end of his ministry, Jesus, as he prepares to enter Jerusalem for what will be the last time, Jesus decides to make a statement about the compassionate reign of God versus the reign and the powers of this world. He says, this is how God's power enters this world and is embodied here. And it is very different than the kings of this world. We have to know a little bit about the ancient world to understand it. So there's this ritualized way that kings would enter into cities for the first time. You can read about it in the journals of Julius Caesar. It was a parade called a triumph, where a king or an emperor shows up to great fanfare and pageantry and reinforces power and hierarchy and patriarchy of the kingdoms of this world. And so Jesus takes that triumph form and flips it on its head. It says, this is what a compassionate king looks like. This is what God looks like. First, in an ancient triumph parade, a king would enter in on a mighty war horse. And Jesus rode in on a young donkey. Can you imagine? It's like the mayor of Denton at the 4th of July parade, waving from the back seat of a Pinto, which would be awesome, of course, but it isn't what happens. But Jesus says the way of God comes not in controlling, coercive power, but in humility, riding on a donkey. Second, in a triumph, kings would come in with the armies they commanded and the opponents they had conquered, but Jesus was surrounded by community. In fact, a ragtag community of us, of all genders, of children of all ages, of all who would come to join, not being commanded, but freely joining as a community, waving their coats and palm branches, laying them down before the procession, not in a fine red carpet, but in a beautiful patchwork of real humanity and real community. It wasn't a power trip, it was a peace march with no stallion, no army, no pretension. Jesus himself rode along with us in the parade, without arms, but with a powerfully inclusive community at his arms, simply offering himself in love and inviting others to do the same. Powerless, vulnerable, compassionate. The way that love always shows up. It was a way that made all who gathered feel safe, feel loved, feel invited and empowered, and feel brave. The religious leaders saw what was going on and they tried to shut it down. You're stirring things up, you're agitating, they said. Tell your people to be quiet. And Jesus said if they didn't sing, even the rocks would cry out, by which he meant this way of compassion, community of love is coming, and it is powerful. Nothing can stop it. Love wins. And though it may seem powerless in the ways of this world, I am unafraid to do what is right, because there is power in that. Because something deep in all of us cries out when we catch a glimpse of the reign of God, of the God moving among us, and of the beloved community coming in our midst. Even in the midst of the joy of that moment, Jesus saw that the way that was coming might not be easy, might not be linear, that the journey for humanity will be long, that the arc of the world universe is long, but that it bends toward justice. Yet still the powers of this world hold is strong. And so as the parade went toward the city, the stories tell us that Jesus paused for a moment. As he looked ahead and looked out at all of us, he wept for a moment. Maybe you've been there as you've looked out over our world. He said this, as he came near and he saw the city, he wept over it, saying, if you, even you, had only recognized this day the things that make for peace, but now they are hidden from your eyes. If only we had recognized the things that make for peace, he says. And there's so much to say about that. But just think over this story. Think of the way of Jesus's compassionate power, the way that it made for peace. He came humble, not proud. He was ready to listen, not coercive. Came in community, not in self-interest, but for the good of all, recognizing our deep interconnected mutuality. It came empowering those around him, not commanding them. It came unafraid to do what is right. It came unarmed but empowered in love, not seeking to defend ourselves, but first to serve and love our neighbor. That's how God's power and reign came into the midst. Power offering itself on behalf of those all around. That's the character of power in God's kind of reign, and that's the way that leads to peace. That's the way of the God who is compassionate. What is God like? Well, Palm Sunday shows us what God is like and invites us to do the same. We may not be queens and kings exactly, or at least no one will let us call ourselves that all the time. But we all have power in our world, privilege and opportunity. Some of us, because of socioeconomics, gender, race, orientation, nationality, have a lot of privilege. I, as a cisgender white man, have a lot of privilege. I look like 99% of the kings in Western civilization in history, just with less frilly collars, right? Given this power and privilege, what is my Palm Sunday parade like? How am I moving through this world? Are we using our power in the way of Jesus? Are we coming humble in community, empowering, courageous, and loving? Are we turning the parade on its head and using our privilege to plant seeds of flourishing for those who need them the most? Are we passing our mic and censoring the voices of others? Are we standing up against justice, lifting the vulnerable, loving our neighbor? Are we moving in and being moved deeply by compassion, recognizing our interconnectedness and mutuality? Are we showing the world what our compassionate God is truly like? This story reminded me that I need to get off my horse, I need to get on the donkey or into the pinto, so I can center the stories of others, listen and learn, know more about how to love and uplift my neighbor, and to stand in solidarity as I listen to their struggles and experiences and stories, listen to their hopes and their dreams, so that I can help my neighbor flourish, plant seeds, and build this community in the way that makes for peace, in the way of the God who is compassionate, to be moved for each other, and to move for each other in the way of Jesus, liberating hope, loving justice, and compassion for all. What is God like? Jesus says, God is good. God is compassionate. So let our way of moving in this world be good and compassionate as well. There's a book that's coming out soon that I'm so looking forward to. You've heard me mention before the great, beloved late teacher, Rachel Held Evans, whose voice I miss every day. One of the last projects that she was working on was a children's book called What is God Like? She was a parent, and I'm sure this came from all of her bedtime conversations as well. The book comes out in June, but it's already stirring my heart. It represents her wisdom from years of seeking God, following Jesus, getting rid of all the old ways and baggage, and wrestling with it all, and asking that question, what is God like? And looking for the God who is love. This book represents all that she's learned from that life of asking, what is God like? And so Rachel Held Evans writes this: whenever you're unsure about what God is like, think about what makes you feel safe, what makes you feel loved, what makes you feel brave. That's what God is like. Listen to that. Think about what makes you feel safe, what makes you feel loved, what makes you feel brave. That's what God is like. That's what Jesus said. That's what Jesus showed. That's what Jesus embodied on Palm Sunday and always. God is compassionate. God is a God who makes you feel safe, who makes you feel loved, who makes you feel brave. That's what God is like. And so friends, remember that for yourselves. And remember that as you move on your journey. However you move through this world, whatever your parade is like, may you move, may you live, may you love in a way that helps us all see what our compassionate God is like. May you love in a way that makes others feel safe, makes others feel loved, and makes others feel brave. That is what God is like. And that's what we're called to be like as well. Amen.
Fountain I drink from, oh, you are my you're never gonna let me down. 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 'Cause you are good, good. Oh, 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 you are good. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never when the night is holding on to me, God is holding on. And when the night is holding on to me, God is holding on.
Hey, church family, my name is Crystal, and I'd like to offer a warm welcome to Holy Week at FUMC Denton. Today, from 1 to 4 p.m., swing by the church for the drive-through Easter egg hunt. Kids and families will enjoy a drive-through scavenger hunt, searching for eggs along the way from the car. Once you've found them all, head back to the main parking lot for a goodie bag with filled eggs and an opportunity to enjoy socially distanced photos with the Easter Bunny. Also, we'll have many Holy Week services this week, including online Maundy Thursday and Good Friday, an in-person outdoor Easter Vigil on Saturday, and of course, Easter Sunday. This Easter, we're excited to offer outdoor worship services at 7, 9, and 11 a.m. here on our church lawn, as well as online Easter services for each of our communities. There will be something for everyone to enjoy safely, and we're really looking forward to worshiping with you this year. You can find details about all of our Holy Week services at fumcdenton.com/Easter.
Friends, thank you for joining with us today. We hope in the love of God and the love of this community that you feel safe, you feel loved, you feel brave. And we thank you for the way that you're helping others experience that. I hope this week that sacred whisper finds you, that you remember that love empowers you to be your brave, authentic self, loving as you have been loved. This week is the beginning of Holy Week, leading to Easter, and there's a lot happening throughout the week, all culminating in a gathering with all of the FUMC Denton family outside on Easter morning at 9 and 11 o'clock. We hope that you will join us. Another way to stay connected to God, to each other, to ourselves, is through our Lent Guide. It has some meditations and some prayers around the topics we've been talking about, around God's love for you and who our God is, around our call to love courageously. You can find it at fumcdenton.com/stories. Check it out there, and thank you to Crystal and to all of our team for their amazing work. We do all of this together, and groups can be a great way to experience that. You can find opportunities at opendtx.com/groups and try something in the way of connecting together in community this season. Thank you so much for supporting this place of sacred belonging with your prayers and your presence and with your generosity. As you support this ministry and this work, you can go to opendtx.com/give to be a part of that. And finally, visit opendtx.com/sign-in to let us know that you're with us today. No matter when you watch, it's helpful for us to know you're here, to stay connected to each other. And so now, friends, as you go into the world this week, take these words of benediction with you as you go. Friends, what is God like? God is compassionate, full of liberating hope, uncompromising justice, and compassion, acceptance, and love for you and for all. May you experience that this week. May you feel safe, loved, and brave. And may you share a reflection of what God is truly like, so that we can be people of compassion and love everywhere you are. You are so loved, so love as you've been loved together. Go in grace, go in peace, and go in the love of God. Amen.
Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, you are my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, you are my song. You are good.
Never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let